Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach you what props are and how we're going to use them in our project. So, as you know, with regular functions, you can pass these things called parameters. So for example, in the case of removing a to-do, we can pass an ID, and the way we pass it is we just call the function, and inside the parentheses, we pass the ID, right? Now, in React components, we can do the same thing because our components are simply functions. As you can see here, the to-do list is a function. So technically, we can pass parameters to this function and pretty much react to whatever's being passed. Now, the way we're going to use props today, and yeah, by the way, so parameters that are passed to React components are called props. So that's a keyword, props. Now, and today I'm going to show you how to use props by doing a small refactor. So in our example here, so as you can see, we have a list and we're mapping through it and we're returning list elements, right? Now, this code works, but it's not very scalable, right? So if we have a very a lot of logic, now this one single component is going to be responsible for outputting the list and having all of these event listeners and having all of these buttons and on clicks, and all of this would be inside of one component, which is the to-do list. Now, this is a good idea if you're just starting out, but once your project becomes bigger, you should start thinking about making your components smaller and with very limited responsibility. So in our case, we're going to create a component that handles rendering one single to-do. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it to-do item. It's not going to have any parameters for now. And what it's going to return JSX, of course. So we're going to take this JSX and we're going to copy it and paste it here. Okay. But right now we're going to have a bunch of errors, right? Because this function doesn't know what a to-do is. Because it doesn't have access to it. They're not in the same scope. So the way we call this component, like the usual syntax, we simply call it this way. We just type to do item, and yeah. So now we are calling for each element in the array. We're calling the to do item component. But this is obviously not working, and as you can see, our application is blank. This is because it's crashing. So if we open the console, we are having a bunch of errors. So to do is not defined because each time we render this component, we don't actually know what to do is. So now the first thing we're going to do is when you render in a list and you output the component for each element, the key needs to be outside the actual element itself. So it needs to be directly on the component. So this way. So the way it was like this doesn't work anymore. The key should always be on the component that's being called directly. So this is the first thing. And the second thing is now we're going to use props to pass this to do to this component. Now, how do we do this? So the syntax is, for example, we take this to do, we type to do equals open curly brackets equals to do, right? So right now, this is the equivalent of, for example, what we did here is we called to do item, we opened the parentheses, and we passed a to do. So this is what it looks like in regular JavaScript. But right now, since we passed it, but we're not actually using it here, so we have to use it. And now we're gonna pass the props. So it's a simple object. And as you can see, we need the to do. So we can either type like props dot to do and like do it in each time we call the to do, or we can simply create a constant. We're gonna call this to do, and it's gonna be equals to props dot to do. And right now, this to do constant actually contains the to do object. Okay. Now we do have a bunch of warnings here. This is simply an ESLint rule. We can ignore this for now. Actually, I can just disable this for the entire file. So it adds this line that pretty much ignores this warning since it's not required. And as you can see, we are passing the to-do. So we have to-do equals to-do. And it's inside the props object. We take it from outside the object and we put it inside of a new constant. And then we can use it around here. But now, as you can see, there's still one more error. There's actually the toggle to-do function. Like I said, this component doesn't know what this function is. So in props, you can actually pass functions as props. So basically in JavaScript in general, you can pretty much pass anything to functions. So in this case, we're going to pass the toggle to do. So in our case, we're going to type toggle to do equals, going to open curly brackets and pass the toggle to do function. And also we need the remove to do. So we're going to pass the remove to do function. Now that it's passed, now we actually need to declare it. So I'm going to type const toggle to do and const remove to do. So right now we've externalized our to do item into its own separate component, and we pass it all the pretty much props that it needs to actually function. And yeah, right now the behavior of our application shouldn't change since all we did was move things around, but the logic is all the same. So if we open our app and refresh, you can see we can mark stuff as completed. We can add to-dos, so new to-do. We can mark it, we can delete it, and we can always delete stuff. So yeah, our app didn't change. All we did was change the code to be more understandable. And the cool part now is, so if I want to display the to-dos list in other places, I don't have to write all the logic for the to-do item again. So all I have to do is just call this component and then pass it these props. And that's pretty much it. So this is a reusable component now. And this will save us a lot of time in our application development. And a quick recap on our app. So I'm going to open the developer tools. And so we can inspect our state. And one cool thing is, so like I said before, this is the component tree. So we have the app component. Inside of it, we have the to-do list component. And inside of the to-do list component, we are rendering 3 components called to-do item, each one with a different key. And actually, the to-do list does have the state. So we have these 3 to-do items. And we have the new to-do. So this one updates as we type out a string. I'm going to delete it for now. And now, inside of each to-do item, we actually have props. So the props that we passed in our code, these, like I said, key is a special prop that's for used by React, but these 3 are the ones that we actually need to use. And if we open, you can see these are the 3 props that we passed. As you can see, remove to do is actually a function. So is toggle to do, and to do is actually an object of the current item. So the first item has learn React, the second one has learn Redux. So yeah, so as you can see how this is a very powerful way to structure your applications. So with this one component, we can pretty much display it anywhere in our application as long as we pass the required props. So yeah, this is how you use props in React. Like I said, you can use anything as props. You can use strings, numbers, objects, arrays, and even functions. So pretty much anything can be passed as props. And this is not a React specific thing. This is just a JavaScript in general feature. And as usual, don't forget to pass the key prop. And like I said, the key prop goes directly on the component. So it goes directly inside of the map. You don't put it inside of the component itself that's being rendered. It's outside the component as a prop. And React will automatically handle this. And if you want to check the keys, you can always open the developer tools and you can see the keys that are being used. So yeah, this is how you do props in React. So you can see how you can pass a bunch of different stuff. And yeah, see you in my next video.